The observation deck of the torn asunder was eerily quiet. Where once the grand construct of the Universal Council had dominated the view, there was now only a slowly expanding cloud of debris. Sergeant Jack Cooper stood rigid, his eyes fixed on the devastation, the weight of what they had done settling heavily on his shoulders. Admiral Vance's resignation still rang in his ears. The shift from diplomacy to open warfare had been swift and brutal. Jack's hand unconsciously moved to his pocket, feeling the outline of Stubborn Pete's photo. He wondered what the old donkey would make of all this. The silence was broken by the sharp voice of the new fleet admiral, Jeremiah Leeds. "All right, people, shock time's over. We've got work to do." Jack turned to see Leeds striding onto the deck, his steely gaze sweeping over the assembled humans and alien delegates. He was a tall man with close-cropped gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite. "First order of business," Leeds announced, his voice carrying easily across the room. "I want teams out there collecting samples of the debris. Every alien delegate is going to receive a little memento of today's events." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. It was a cold move, calculated to instill fear. But as he glanced at the stunned faces of the alien delegates, he realized it would probably be effective. Cooper Leeds barked. "You're on collection duty. Take a team and get it done." "Yes, Sir," Jack responded automatically, moving to carry out the order. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Jack led a small team in EVA suits, maneuvering through the debris field. Each piece they collected was a grim reminder of the lives lost, the civilization erased. As they worked, Jack couldn't help but think of the farms back on Earth, of how easy it was to destroy compared to the effort it took to grow and build. Back on the ship, Jack watched as each piece of debris was carefully placed in a transparent container. Leeds personally oversaw the process, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Gather round," Leeds called out, addressing both the human crew and the alien delegates. "It's time we had a little chat about the future." The aliens huddled together, their varied physiologies united in their obvious fear. Zax Lath, the former leader of the council delegation, stood at the forefront, its iridescent skin a dull, muted gray. "The rules have changed," Leeds began, his voice hard. "You tried to wipe us out. You failed. Now, you have a choice to make. Either you all become vassals to humanity, or..." He gestured to the viewport, where the debris field was still visible. A murmur ran through the alien delegates. Jack could see the shock and disbelief on their faces. This wasn't diplomacy, it was subjugation. "To ensure our message is properly delivered," Leeds continued, "each of you will be escorted back to your homeworlds by a contingent of our fleet. You'll deliver the news personally, along with these little reminders." He held up one of the debris containers. Jack's mind raced. This was more than just a show of force. It was a deliberate provocation. Leeds was counting on resistance, on giving humanity an excuse to extend the conflict. "Any volunteers for escort duty?" Leeds asked, his eyes scanning the human crew. Before he could think better of it, Jack stepped forward. "I'll go, sir." Leeds raised an eyebrow. "Eager for more action, Cooper?" "Just want to see the job through," Sir Jack replied, keeping his face neutral. Leeds nodded, a knowing glint in his eye. "All right, you'll be on the cruiser escorting Zax Lath here back to its homeworld." As the assignments were handed out, Jack caught Zax Lath's eye. The alien's multiple eyes blinked rapidly, a gesture Jack had come to recognize as extreme stress or fear. Later, as Jack prepared for the mission, he found himself again touching the photo in his pocket. The simplicity of life on the farm seemed a world away now. He had joined the Marines to see the stars, to be part of something greater. But this wasn't what he had imagined. Yet as he looked out at the stars, at the vastness of space that humanity was now asserting its dominance over, Jack couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and apprehension. They had shown the universe their strength. Now they would have to live with the consequences. As the torn asunder prepared to deploy its escort missions, Jack steeled himself for what was to come. He knew that the real conflict was just beginning, and whether he liked it or not, he would be right in the middle of it all. The cruiser Intrepid hummed with barely contained power as it detached from the torn asunder. Sergeant Jack Cooper stood on the bridge, watching as the massive flagship grew smaller in the view screen. Around them, other ships of the human fleet were similarly departing, each carrying alien delegates and their ominous gifts back to their respective homeworlds. Jack turned his attention to the bridge crew, all tense and focused on their tasks. Captain Marcus Grayfield, a grizzled veteran of countless space conflicts, sat in the command chair. His weathered face bore the scars of battles past, with an eye patch covering his left eye and the remaining fingers of his right hand drumming a restless rhythm on the armrest. Grayfield had been handpicked for this mission, his reputation for handling difficult situations preceding him. Course laid in for Zach Slath's homeworld, Captain the Navigator announced. Estimated travel time 6 days at standard FTL. Grayfield grunted an acknowledgement. Engage when ready, and keep a sharp eye on our guests. His voice carried the gravel of years of barked orders and inhaled smoke from burning ships. Jack couldn't help but notice the edge in the captain's tone when he mentioned the aliens. He understood the sentiment. Trust was in short supply these days. As the Intrepid jumped to FTL, Jack made his way to the secure quarters where Zach Slath and its attendants were being held. 2 armed Marines stood guard outside. They snapped to attention as Jack approached. At ease, Jack said. Any issues? No, sir, one of the guards replied. They've been quiet. Almost too quiet, if you ask me. Jack nodded. Stay alert. I'm going in to check on them. The door slid open, revealing a spacious but spartanly furnished room. Zach Slath sat in the center, its iridescent skin a dull, muted blue. Its attendants huddled nearby, their alien features difficult for Jack to read. Sergeant Cooper, Zach Slath's translator, rendered its clicks and whistles into English. Have you come to gloat? Jack kept his face neutral. Just checking in, making sure you have everything you need for the journey. Zach Slath's multiple eyes blinked rapidly. What we need is to turn back time, to undo the tragedy that has befallen us all. For a moment, Jack felt a pang of sympathy, but he quickly pushed it aside. That's not an option. We're here now, and we all have to deal with the consequences of our actions. Our actions? Zach Slath's skin flickered with spots of angry red. It was your species that arrived uninvited, that threatened us with destruction if we didn't bow to your demands. Jack's jaw tightened. And it was your council that decided extinction was preferable to coexistence. You made your choice. They stared at each other in tense silence, the weight of recent events hanging heavily between them. Finally, Jack turned to leave. Get some rest, he said over his shoulder. It's going to be a long journey. As the days passed, tension aboard the Intrepid continued to build. The human crew went about their duties with grim determination, always aware of the alien presence in their midst. Jack found himself spending more time than necessary patrolling the corridors near the aliens' quarters, his instincts on high alert. During one of these patrols, Captain Grayfield approached him, his uneven gait echoing in the corridor. Walk with me, Sergeant, he said, his voice a low rumble. As they moved through the ship's corridors, Grayfield spoke quietly. I don't like this, Cooper. Smells like a powder keg ready to blow. Reminds me of the Proxima Centauri conflict, just before all hell broke loose. Jack nodded. I know what you mean, Captain. The aliens are scared, and scared beings do desperate things. Damn right, Grayfield agreed, his single eye narrowing. And I can't shake the feeling that this is exactly what Admiral Leeds wants. A justification for further action. Jack hesitated, then decided to voice his own suspicions. I think you're right, Captain. This whole mission, it feels like we're setting ourselves up for an ambush. Grayfield's scarred face twisted into a grim smile. Then we need to be ready to hit back harder, double the guard on the aliens, and run combat drills every 4 hours. I want this crew ready for the worst. Yes, sir, Jack replied, grateful for the captain's battle-hardened pragmatism. As he turned to carry out the orders, Grayfield called after him. And Cooper, keep both eyes on Zach Slath. If anyone's going to make a move, it'll be them. Trust me, I've seen it before. Jack nodded, his hand unconsciously moving to touch the photo in his pocket. As he headed off to implement the new security measures, he couldn't help but think of the farm back on Earth, of stubborn Pete and simpler times. The stars streaked by outside the ship's viewports, each one bringing them closer to Zach's Lath's homeworld and to whatever awaited them there. Jack knew that the real test was yet to come, and as he prepared the crew for potential conflict, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead. The journey continued, a pressure cooker of tension and suspicion hurtling through the vastness of space. And Sergeant Jack Cooper, caught between duty and doubt, prepared to face whatever the universe had in store, guided by a captain who had seen the worst the cosmos could offer and lived to tell the tale. The Intrepid dropped out of FTL with a shudder, the starscape resolving into a view of Zach's Lath's homeworld. Sergeant Jack Cooper stood on the bridge, taking in the alien planet. It was a swirling mass of purples and greens, with towering spires visible, even from orbit a far cry from the blues and whites of Earth. Captain Grayfield leaned forward in his command chair, his single eye narrowing as he studied the sensor readouts. "Status report," he barked. "Multiple vessels detected in high orbit," sir, the sensor officer responded. "Definitely military. They're moving to intercept." Grayfield's scarred face twisted into a grim smile. "Right on schedule. Shields up, weapons on standby. Let's not give them any excuse to start this dance early." Jack felt the tension on the bridge ratchet up a notch. He caught Grayfield's eye, and the captain nodded towards the door. Understanding the unspoken order, Jack left to retrieve their guests. As he approached the secure quarters, Jack steeled himself. This was at the moment of truth. He nodded to the guards and entered. Zach's Lath and its attendants were already standing, clearly aware of their arrival. The alien leader's skin rippled with a mix of colors that Jack couldn't quite interpret. "It's time," Jack said simply. Zach's Lath's multiple eyes blinked in rapid succession. "And if we refuse to deliver your message?" Jack's hand unconsciously moved to his sidearm. "That's not an option, Zach's Lath. You know that." The alien's skin settled into a deep, stormy blue. "Very well. Let us proceed with this farce." As they made their way to the shuttle bay, Jack couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Everything felt too easy, too scripted. He caught snippets of hurried alien whispers behind him, but the translator couldn't make sense of them. In the shuttle bay, Captain Grayfield was waiting, the container of debris from the destroyed Council world clutched in his remaining hand. His eye gleamed with a hard light as he handed it to Zach's Lath. "Remember," Grayfield growled, "we'll be watching every move down there. Any funny business, and we'll turn your cities into craters. Clear." Zach's Lath took the container, its appendages visibly trembling. "Crystal, Captain. As clear as the void of space you threaten us with." As the aliens boarded the shuttle, Jack turned to Grayfield. "Sir, something doesn't feel right. This is too smooth." Grayfield nodded, his face grim. "Of course it is, Cooper. They're playing nice until they think they have the upper hand. Be ready for anything down there." The descent to the planet's surface was tense and silent. Jack watched the alien landscape grow closer, marveling despite himself at the strange beauty of it all. Massive structures that seemed to defy gravity rose from swirling mists, while flying creatures that looked more like living ships darted between them. They landed in what appeared to be a central plaza, already crowded with alien onlookers. As the shuttle doors opened, Jack was hit by a wave of alien scents and sounds. He stepped out, flanked by his squad, weapons at the ready. Zach's Lath emerged last, clutching the container of debris. A hush fell over the crowd as the alien leader began to speak, its words translated and broadcasted for both the human delegation and the alien masses. "My people," Zach's Lath began, its voice trembling slightly, "I come before you bearing grave news. The Universal Council is no more." A ripple of shock passed through the crowd. Jack tightened his grip on his weapon, scanning for any signs of hostility. Zach's Lath continued, detailing the destruction of the Council world and humanity's demands. As it spoke, Jack noticed subtle movements in the crowd. Aliens slipping away, others moving closer. His combat instinct screamed that something was wrong. "Captain," he sub-vocalized into his comm, "I think we're about to have a situation down here." Grayfield's gruff voice came back immediately. "Roger that, Cooper. We're seeing some unusual activity in orbit too. Be ready to bug out on my mark." As Zaxlath finished its speech, holding up the container of debris, the plaza erupted into chaos. Alien voices raised in anger and fear, the crowd surging forward. Jack and his squad formed a defensive perimeter, weapons raised. "This is not the end," Zaxlath suddenly shouted, its voice rising above the din. "We will not bow to these invaders. We will." The rest of its words were drowned out as explosions rocked the plaza. Jack's world narrowed to the immediate threat, years of training kicking in as he shouted orders to his squad. Defensive formation. Get to the shuttle. As they fought their way back, aliens swarming from all sides, Jack saw Zaxlath being whisked away by a group of what had to be military officials. The container of debris lay shattered on the ground, its contents scattered like a grim reminder of the cost of this conflict. They had almost reached the shuttle when Grayfield's voice cut through the chaos. "Cooper, get your asses back up here now. We've got incoming boggies, lots of him." As the shuttle lifted off, narrowly evading energy blasts from the ground, Jack caught a last glimpse of the alien city. Massive ships were rising from hidden hangars, their designs unlike anything he had seen before. The battle for Zaxlath's world had begun, and as the shuttle raced back to the Intrepid, Jack Cooper knew that this was just the beginning of a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. As the shuttle lifted off, narrowly evading energy blasts from the ground, Jack caught a last glimpse of the alien city. Massive ships were rising from hidden hangars, their designs unlike anything he had seen before. But something else caught his eye, a group of human Marines pinned down by alien forces, desperately fighting for survival. In that split second, Jack made a decision. "Sorry, Captain," he muttered, then shouted to the pilot, "Lower the ramp." "Are you insane?" the pilot yelled back, but Jack was already moving. With a deep breath, Jack launched himself out of the shuttle, using his suit's maneuvering thrusters to guide his descent. He hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact, and immediately sprinted towards the embattled Marines. "Cooper, what the hell are you doing?" It was Lieutenant Ramirez, leader of the pinned-down squad. "Couldn't let you have all the fun," Sir Jack replied, sliding into cover beside them. "What's our situation?" Ramirez grimaced. "Bad and getting worse. We're cut off from the main force, and these bastards just keep coming." Jack peered over their makeshift barricade. The aliens were advancing, using strange, shifting energy shields that seemed to adapt to human weapons fire. In the sky above, he could see the flashes of space combat as the battle extended into orbit. Suddenly, Jack's comm crackled to life. It was Captain Grayfield's voice, broadcasting to all ground forces, "All hands, this is Captain Grayfield. We're under heavy attack up here. Multiple hostile vessels emerging from the planet's atmosphere. They're moving to surround us." Jack exchanged a grim look with Ramirez. This wasn't just a local uprising, it was a coordinated, planet-wide assault. As they fought to hold their position, Jack could hear snippets of the space battle through his comm. The human ships, outnumbered but not outgunned, were putting up a fierce fight. But then came a transmission that chilled him to the bone. "Multiple hits on our port shield," Captain, a voice reported. "Shield integrity at 78% and falling." Grayfield's gruff reply followed reroute power from non-essential systems. "Cooper, target their lead ship's propulsion systems." There was a pause, then confusion in Grayfield's voice. "Cooper? Where the hell is Cooper?" Jack winced, knowing he'd have to face the consequences of his impulsive decision later if they survived this. The battle raged on, both in space and on the ground. Jack and the Marines fought tooth and nail, slowly pushing back against the alien forces. But for every alien they took down, two more seemed to take its place. Then, through his comm, Jack heard a panicked voice. "Sir, I'm detecting some kind of spatial distortion around those new ships. Our targeting systems can't get a lock." Grayfield's curse was audible even through the static. "They've been holding back their advanced tech. Clever bastards. All ships switched to manual targeting. Old school people. As night fell on the alien world, the sky lit up with the furious exchange of weapons fire. Jack and the Marines watched in awe and horror as ships on both sides erupted into fireballs, briefly illuminating the darkness before being snuffed out by the vacuum of space. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. A massive energy surge erupted from somewhere in the city, a beam of blinding light shooting upwards. Through his comm, Jack heard the panicked reports. What in the hell was that? Unknown, sir. But whatever it was, it's charging up for another shot. Then came Grayfield's grim order: all ships. This is Captain Grayfield. Initiate emergency FTL jump. Get us out of here. Jack's heart sank. They were leaving. The fleet was retreating, and they were being left behind. Ramirez must have realized it too. They're abandoning us, he said, his voice hollow. Jack gripped his weapon tighter. Can't blame them. If they stayed, they'd all die. At least this way, some of us survive to fight another day. As the human ships in orbit winked out of existence, jumping to FTL, an eerie silence fell over the battlefield. The aliens, perhaps shocked by the humans' retreat, temporarily halted their advance. Jack used the moment to take stock of their situation. They were stranded on an alien world, vastly outnumbered, with no immediate hope of rescue. But as he looked at the determined faces of Ramirez and the other Marines, he knew they wouldn't go down without a fight. "What now, Sergeant?" one of the younger Marines asked, fear evident in his voice. Jack's hand unconsciously moved to his pocket, feeling the outline of Stubborn Pete's photo. He thought of the old donkey's unwavering determination in the face of adversity. "Now," Jack said, his voice steady, "we survive. We find any other human survivors, we fortify a position, and we hold out until help arrives." He managed a grim smile. "And we show these aliens why you should never corner a human." As alien war cries began to fill the air once more, Jack readied his weapon. The night was far from over, and the real test of their resolve was just beginning. But one thing was certain: the aliens were about to learn just how stubborn humanity could be. The alien dawn broke over the battlefield, casting an eerie green light across the rubble-strewn landscape. Sergeant Jack Cooper peered out from the makeshift barricade, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The night had been long and brutal, a constant series of skirmishes as they fought to hold their position against waves of alien attackers. "Status report." Lieutenant Ramirez's voice came from behind him, tired but alert. Jack turned to face his commanding officer. "Perimeter's holding for now, sir. They seem to have pulled back to regroup, but I doubt that'll last long." Ramirez nodded grimly. "Casualties?" "3 wounded, 1 critical," Jack replied. "Medic's doing what she can, but we're low on supplies." The lieutenant's face hardened, and no word from any other human forces. Jack shook his head. In the chaos of the night, they'd tried repeatedly to contact other stranded groups, but the alien forces were jamming most frequencies. They were on their own, at least for now. As if to punctuate their dire situation, a series of explosions lit up the sky. The burning wreckage of human ships, destroyed in the battle above, was entering the atmosphere. Each fiery streak was a grim reminder of their isolation and the overwhelming odds they faced. "Sergeant, we've got movement," Private Rodriguez called out from his lookout position. Jack rushed to the young Marine's side, pulling out his binoculars. What he saw made his blood run cold. A vast alien army was assembling on the outskirts of the city, a sea of bizarre war machines and soldiers stretching as far as the eye could see. "They're done playing around," Jack muttered. "They're coming to finish the job." Ramirez joined them, taking in the sight with a grim expression. "We can't hold against that, not with what we have." For a moment, silence fell over the group. The reality of their situation was sinking in. They were stranded on an alien world, vastly outnumbered, with no hope of immediate rescue. It would be easy to give in to despair. But Jack Cooper wasn't built that way. "With all due respect, sir," he said, turning to Ramirez, "we're not dead yet. And as long as we're breathing, we're still in this fight." Ramirez looked at him, a spark of determination rekindling in his eyes. "What do you suggest, Sergeant?" Jack's mind raced, years of training and a lifetime of stubborn perseverance coming to the fore. "We need to move. This position is too exposed. If we can make it to the industrial sector we passed on the way in, we might find better shelter, maybe even supplies we can use." Ramirez considered for a moment, then nodded. "It's risky, but staying here is suicide." "All right, Cooper, you're on point. Get everyone ready to move out in 10 minutes. As Jack relayed the orders, he felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. They were in an impossible situation, but somehow, that brought a clarity he'd never experienced before. Every decision, every action could mean the difference between life and death. They moved out under the cover of the strange, misty dawn, carrying their wounded and what little supplies they had left. Jack led the way, every sense on high alert as they navigated the alien cityscape. Strange structures loomed around them, their functions incomprehensible to human eyes. They had almost reached the industrial sector when all hell broke loose. Alien patrol ships appeared overhead, their searchlights sweeping the streets. At the same time, ground forces began to converge on their position. "Move, move, move," Jack shouted, urging the group forward as energy blasts began to rain down around them. They sprinted the last few hundred meters, diving into the shelter of a massive alien structure that looked like it might be a factory or power plant. As Ramirez organized their defenses, Jack took a moment to catch his breath and assess their new position. The building was a maze of strange machinery and pulsing energy conduits. It wasn't ideal, but it was defensible, and there were materials they could use to fortify their position. Cooper, Ramirez called out, "I need you to get our comms up and running. If there are any other human survivors out there, we need to find them." Jack nodded, already moving to the task. As he worked to jury-rig a long-range transmitter from their equipment and salvaged alien tech, he could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. The aliens were coming, and they were coming in force. Hours passed in a blur of frenetic activity. They fortified their position as best they could, tended to their wounded, and prepared for the onslaught they knew was coming. Through it all, Jack kept working on the transmitter, pushing aside exhaustion and hunger. Finally, as the alien sun was setting, bathing the world in a strange purple twilight, Jack's cobbled-together device crackled to life. "This is Sergeant Jack Cooper of the Earth Marines," he broadcast on all frequencies. "To any human forces on this godforsaken rock, we are alive, we are fighting, and we need backup. Our position is..." He was cut off by a deafening explosion. The aliens had found them, and the assault was beginning in earnest. As Jack rushed to take up a defensive position, Ramirez shouted over the din, "Did it work? Did the message get through?" Jack met his commander's eyes, determination burning in his gaze. "I don't know, sir. But whether help is coming or not, we're going to give these aliens one hell of a fight." The night sky lit up with weapons fire as the human survivors prepared to face the alien horde. Jack's hand brushed against the photo of stubborn Pete in his pocket, drawing strength from the memory of the old donkey's unwavering spirit. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and stranded on a hostile alien world. But they were human, and if humanity's history had taught them anything, it was how to face impossible odds. As the alien war machines approached their position, Jack Cooper tightened his grip on his rifle. Whatever happened next, they would face it as they had faced everything else head-on, with grit, determination, and the unyielding human spirit that had carried them across the stars. The battle for survival on Zaxlath's world was about to reach its crescendo, and Sergeant Jack Cooper was ready to fight until the bitter end, or until the cavalry arrived, whichever came first. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this, and please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.